In 2015, a limestone cave in the Rhône Valley yielded the most complete Neanderthal remains found in France since 1979, an individual nicknamed Thorin. This discovery would rewrite what we thought we knew. Decades of genetic research had declared late Neanderthals a single, fading lineage. But when scientists unlocked Thorin's ancient DNA, they uncovered a ghost lineage, isolated for 50,000 years, unchanged and untouched by modern humans, invisible until now. This finding does not just alter prehistory. It reveals that everything we knew about Neanderthal extinction was missing its most astonishing chapter. The trail begins with a single tooth and a question no one was prepared to answer. A narrow road winds through the Rhône Valley, cutting between limestone cliffs and the slow-moving river below. On a rise above the water sits Grotte Mandrin, a shallow cave carved by wind and time into the pale stone. For thousands of years, this shelter watched the comings and goings of ancient hunters, its entrance facing south to catch the winter sun. In 2010, a team led by Ludovic Slimak arrived with shovels, trowels, and a resolve to map every layer of sediment, every fragment of bone. The cave's location was no accident. This valley served as a natural corridor, a crossroads for animals and people moving between the Mediterranean and the heart of Ice Age Europe. Excavations at Grotte Mandrin demanded patience. Each season, Slimak's team peeled away thin bands of windblown sand and silt, revealing a record of occupation stretching back more than 80,000 years. The layers ran like the pages of a book: fireplaces, flint tools, and the scattered bones of horses, reindeer, and bison. More than 60,000 stone artifacts and 70,000 animal remains surfaced in careful succession. The cave's sediment, undisturbed for millennia, preserved the alternating traces of Neanderthals and, in some levels, the first modern humans to reach Western Europe. In 2015, as Slimak's crew worked near the cave's entrance, they uncovered a cluster of teeth and bone fragments pressed into a shallow depression beside the bedrock. The context was unmistakable. This was the post-Neuronian II layer, the last Mysterian phase before modern humans arrived. The team halted all digging, sealing the trench and documenting every detail. Strict protocols governed the removal. Each find was bagged, logged, and sent under guard to the lab. In the subdued light of the cave, the significance was clear. The Rhône Valley's ancient crossroads had yielded a Neanderthal whose story was still waiting to be told. Thorin's story is written most clearly in his teeth. 31 fossilized teeth, some still anchored to fragments of jawbone, survived 42,000 to 52,000 years in the cave's cool darkness. The nickname Thorin, drawn from Tolkien's tales, hints at a sense of individuality. This was not just a set of remains, but a person who once chewed, bit, and smiled in a world now vanished. His dental anatomy preserves a record of both daily struggle and rare fortune. The crowns are ground down from years of gnawing tough roots and sinew, with edges chipped and pitted by grit in the Ice Age diet. One molar is extra, a supernumerary tooth, a genetic quirk rarely seen in Neanderthals, likely a sign of his lineage's long isolation. The teeth's true value, though, lies deep inside. Each root encases a chamber of dental pulp, a soft tissue once threaded with blood vessels and nerves. This pulp acts as a natural vault, shielding DNA from bacteria, water, and the slow decay that erases most ancient life. Even as bone weathers and crumbles, the pulp can preserve genetic traces for tens of millennia. For scientists, these teeth were more than fossils. They were time capsules offering a chance to recover a Neanderthal's genetic code nearly intact. Fieldwork placed Thorin's life between 42,000 and 52,000 years ago, a window confirmed by Bayesian modeling that combined radiocarbon dating, stratigraphy, and the position of his remains within the cave's sediment layers. This timing sets him among the very last Neanderthals to walk the Rhône Valley, as modern humans pressed in from the south. His remains stand as the most complete Neanderthal dental collection found in France since the late 1970s, a rare bridge between the vanished world of his kind and the forensic tools of today. The focus on his teeth would soon move from field notebooks to the laboratory, where the secrets locked within would be coaxed into the light. Inside the ancient DNA laboratory, the rules are absolute. Every surface gleams under ultraviolet lights, wiped down until not a single stray cell remains. Researchers donned full bodysuits, gloves, and face masks before stepping through the airlock. Any trace of modern human DNA could overwhelm the fragile genetic material locked inside Thorin's teeth, so even the tools are sterilized between each step. The team selects a molar from the carefully cataloged collection and places it under a microscope. Using a precision drill, they bore into the root, collecting fine powder from the chamber of dental pulp hidden deep within. This is the only part of the tooth likely to preserve ancient blood cells, and with them the Neanderthals' genetic code. The powder is transferred into a sterile tube, sealed, and moved to a separate clean room for extraction. Throughout the process, every move is tracked: who handled the sample, when, and how. Even the air is filtered, and negative controls run alongside every step to detect the faintest hint of contamination. Extracting DNA from a specimen more than 40,000 years old is a race against decay. Any surviving genetic fragments are short, broken, and mixed with a vast background of bacterial and fungal DNA. The challenge is to isolate the endogenous, or original, Neanderthal DNA from the exogenous contaminants that have seeped in over millennia. Modern sequencing machines can read millions of DNA fragments at once, but only a small fraction will belong to Thorin. The rest are noise, microbes, cave sediment, and the occasional stray cell from a modern handler. Authentication relies on measurable patterns. Genuine ancient DNA carries distinctive damage at the ends of its strands, a kind of molecular scar left by centuries of chemical decay. The team quantifies these patterns, calculating the ratio of endogenous to exogenous DNA for each sample. In Thorin's case, the percentage of authentic Neanderthal DNA is surprisingly high, a rare stroke of luck that makes full genome reconstruction possible. By the end of the extraction process, the team holds a tiny vial containing all that remains of Thorin's genetic legacy. Every safeguard, every sterile protocol, has been designed to ensure that what comes next, the sequencing itself, will reveal not just a Neanderthal's genome, but a true record of a vanished world. The next step demanded proof that could stand up to the toughest scrutiny. Age estimates for Thorin's remains underwent a battery of independent tests, each designed to rule out error and confirm the timeline suggested by the cave's layers. Radiocarbon dating targeted the collagen in animal bones found alongside the teeth, while optically stimulated luminescence measured the last time grains of sand had seen sunlight. Bayesian modeling then synthesized these results with the cave's stratigraphy, producing a window from 52,900 to 48,050 years before present. The window was tight enough to silence doubts. Every method pointed to the same surprising conclusion. Thorin belonged to the very end of the Neanderthal era, not to some ancient forgotten chapter. Outside, laboratories ran their own tests, repeating the measurements on fresh samples and cross-checking every number. The research team submitted their findings to Cell Genomics, one of the most respected journals in the field. Peer reviewers combed through the methods, looking for signs of contamination or statistical sleight of hand. The data held up. On September 11th, 2024, the results became public. The announcement included Thorin's genome, his age, and the paradox at the heart of the discovery. But the genome itself raised more questions than it answered. When population geneticists compared Thorin's DNA to their vast database of ancient and modern genomes, the results refused to fit. His genetic signature matched Neanderthals, who had lived more than 100,000 years earlier, not his supposed contemporaries in Europe or Asia. The database flagged his genome as an outlier, a mismatch that could not be explained by laboratory error or faulty dating. The publication did not just add another Neanderthal to the record. It forced every researcher in the field to reconsider what they thought they knew about the species' final years. With the evidence, now a matter of public record, the paradox stood open for the scientific community to debate. The data were robust, the dating method sound, and yet Thorin's DNA told a story that seemed to belong to another time. The question was no longer whether the findings were real, but how such a lineage could have survived in isolation for so long, and what that meant for the tangled history of our closest relatives. Geneticists began by comparing Thorin's DNA to the vast catalog of Neanderthal genomes collected from sites across Eurasia. The results were startling. Thorin's lineage had split from other Neanderthals around 105,000 years ago. For nearly 50,000 years, his ancestors remained genetically isolated, their DNA evolving along a separate path, even as other Neanderthal groups mixed and migrated across the continent. This timeline stretches further than the span from the first cave paintings to the modern day. Population genetic models, using coalescent theory, mapped the divergence as a precise moment deep in the past, long before the last glacial advances swept across Europe. Thorin's genome, preserved in the dental pulp of his molar, became a molecular time capsule. It carried the genetic signature of an ancient population, untouched by the waves of gene flow that shaped the rest of the Neanderthal world. While late Neanderthals from places like Vindija Cave in Croatia showed a patchwork of DNA from distant relatives, Thorin's genetic code stood apart, echoing the deep past. This ghost lineage, invisible in the archaeological record, surfaced only through the molecular clock embedded in Thorin's DNA. No tools, bones, or artifacts had hinted at its existence. Only the slow accumulation of genetic differences, measured in thousands of generations, revealed that his group had been living on the margins, cut off from the great currents of Neanderthal history. The mismatch between his ancient genome and his late survival forced scientists to reconsider how many hidden populations might have existed, their stories locked away until the right specimen in the right place could be found. Thorin's DNA did not simply add another branch to the Neanderthal family tree. It opened a window onto a vanished world, preserved in genetic code rather than stone or bone. The scale of this isolation and the mechanisms that maintained it set the stage for understanding how vulnerability could arise in such a world apart. Thorin's genome reads like a record of isolation. When researchers mapped the sequence, they found long, uninterrupted stretches where both copies of his DNA were identical, clear evidence of generations spent in a small, closed group. These runs of homozygosity are genetic footprints left by repeated mating between close relatives, a pattern that stands out starkly against the patchwork genomes of other late Neanderthals. In population genetics, this points to a tiny, effective population size, where the number of breeding individuals drops so low that diversity cannot recover. For Thorin's people, each birth drew from a shrinking pool of ancestors, and every child inherited the same ancient code, generation after generation. The molecular tests for admixture told a second story, one of complete separation. Scientists used statistical tools to scan genomes for fragments of foreign DNA, searching for the telltale signatures of mixing between populations. In late Neanderthals from elsewhere in Europe, these tests routinely pick up traces of Homo sapiens, a genetic echo of brief encounters as modern humans spread across the continent. But Thorin's DNA returned a result of 0. Not a single segment matched the pattern of modern human ancestry. His lineage had remained untouched, genetically insulated from the newcomers who would soon dominate the landscape. The combination of extensive homozygosity and the total absence of Homo sapiens DNA paints a bleak picture for Thorin's group. Cut off from the wider Neanderthal world, denied the genetic refresh that comes with outside contact, their survival depended on a fragile balance. Any new disease, climate swing, or shortage of food could push such a population over the edge. In the end, their genetic isolation was not just a quirk of history. It was a vulnerability written into every cell that would leave them defenseless as the world changed around them. Neanderthal extinction no longer reads as a single, sweeping disappearance. Instead, the evidence points to a patchwork of fates, some groups merging with incoming Homo sapiens, others fading in isolation, and a few, like Thorin's lineage, vanishing with their genetic secrets intact. The traditional story, where modern humans absorbed the last Neanderthals through interbreeding, now stands beside a more nuanced reality. Today, people of non-African descent carry 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genomes, a legacy of mixing with certain Neanderthal groups during ancient migrations. Yet this inheritance comes from lineages that, unlike Thorin's, did not remain genetically secluded. Thorin's ghost lineage left no trace in modern human DNA. His people's story ended in the Rhône Valley, their genetic code preserved only in the pulp of ancient teeth. This realization reframes extinction as a mosaic, some populations persisting through contact, others through stubborn isolation. The survival of Neanderthal ancestry in us comes from those who mingled, while entire branches like Thorin's simply disappeared, their contribution lost, except for what ancient DNA can recover. The search for other ghost lineages is far from over. Researchers are combing caves across southern France, hoping to find more individuals who might fill the gaps in this fragmented record. Each new discovery has the power to reshape the story, revealing how diverse and unpredictable Neanderthal survival truly was. The extinction of our closest relatives was not a single event, but a series of local endings, each shaped by geography, climate, and chance. As ancient DNA technology advances, the boundaries of what can be known keep expanding, inviting new questions and new investigations into the deep past. Today, ancient DNA exposes hidden branches in our own family tree, ghost lineages lost for tens of thousands of years. As sequencing technology accelerates, Each new genome forces us to rethink what we know about extinction, survival, and connection. The story isn't just about Neanderthals. It is about the complexity we still carry and the secrets our own DNA may yet hold. What else waits in the dust? Share your thoughts below.